We are in the looking at the parable of the prodigal son, and that's on. Hey Ray, can you push that door closed for me real quick? I hear the sound going up the stairwell. Okay. The text is Luke 15. I have an extra Bible if anybody needs it. Okay. Luke 15. 11 through 24. Luke 15, 11 through 24. Now, if you find Luke 15, 11 through 24, then look back at the beginning of Luke 15 and notice that Luke 15 is about three different parables about lost things. And in verses 1 and 2, we find out the context of what is going on. Where's that stool? There we go. The context of what's going on. The lost sheep and the lost coin. But in verses 1 and 2, who is coming near to listen to Jesus? Sinners. And then in verse 2, who is grumbling and saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them"? Right. So verse 3 says, "So," anytime you see a "so," that means look up at what came before. He told them this parable, and then the first one he tells us about the sheep and the 99 lost in the wilderness. This coming Sunday, I'm going to preach on Psalm 23 and a little bit on the parable of the lost sheep, but mostly just generally the idea of the fourth Sunday in Lent is actually this coming Sunday, and it's often called Shepherd Sunday. So, in fact, let's see, what is...
Didn't you preach on the 23rd Psalm another time recently, not too long ago? Wasn't that the sermon we liked so much, Ken?
We just talk about it every week as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot in it.
I don't know. Maybe.
We stood on the front porch and said that was about the best sermon we'd ever heard in our whole lives.
Oh, should I do a repeat, a rerun? Do it again. Do a rerun? A rerun? Well, don't compare this one to that one. Just this one will just be what it is, and we'll just see. And maybe together they'll both help us. That's sweet. Thank you. There was a song a while back, but I don't know if it was that one, but I'm not sure. When you do it every Sunday, it all runs together. So lost sheep is beginning of 15, and then 8 through 10 is lost coin. And he says by the time he's done both of those, then he said, in fact, when he says each of those, he asks in this really funny way. In verse 4, he says, "Which one of you," et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, "would not rejoice?" And then in verse 8, "Or what woman having 10 coins, et cetera, would not rejoice," essentially. So the question is, it's kind of like, but then the things he says, the lost sheep, when you could lose 99, the coin, when you turn your whole house upside down for one coin, I mean, it's exaggeration, it's hyperbole, in a good sense. It's like saying, the shepherd will go to great lengths, the woman will go to great lengths to find the lost thing. And of course, it's a metaphor for people. So God will go to great lengths to find the lost people, find us when we're lost. And the way he asked the question is kind of rhetorical, because the real answer should be, well, nobody would do that. The real answer is, the logical answer is, nobody would leave their 99 and go get one. Nobody would turn the whole house upside down have their neighbors over and say, look, I found a quarter. I mean, what if somebody came to you and had a party because they found a quarter at their house, you know? So it's this, the rhetorical question is, well, nobody would do that. But the real answer is, but God would. That God does. So it's that radical welcome and hospitality and welcome and that he's preaching on. So that's the context in which he tells them this story, starting in verse 11. Then Jesus said, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me. So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout the country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired hands have bread enough to spare? But here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands. So he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his slaves, quickly, bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. Now, our lesson stops there because obviously there's so much more we could say about the older brother. But we're just gonna kind of, it's not probably not fair to the story entirely, but let's not bite off any more than we can chew today. Right, always do. Now, you already know this story. Now, tell me if you had it. You don't have to raise your hands, but if those of you who had a chance to read chapter 3, that is just the Sunday, the text in the book, do you have some nod? Can you nod if you had a chance? Okay, so I'd say most of us have read this. If you haven't, that's remember, read if you can read the next time, for example, read chapter 4. That includes the weekdays, and you can break them out over the days. But we're going to study the Sunday, which is the main first chapter, the Sunday, the long lesson. What did you notice about the certain man having 2 sons, and what did Jesus teach us here about the Father? What did you, if you were to characterize the Father, what would you say? What words would you use?
Forgiving.
Forgiving and loving.
And loving.
Not really seeking, because he's the Father is thinking those who are with me. It's interesting. I'm trying to get at the fact that God wants to seek the lost. Okay, and that's not really a human thing that we naturally do. And yet God, that seems to be most important. Okay, so He's seeking out the ones that are lost.
Absolutely. Yeah, Sarah.
Leaving Bible study, you said that for the father to go out and meet the son, that was, I guess, religious.
Well, it was against the custom.
Custom
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
All of it was counterculture.
Right.
That's right.
A lot of it, the running,
Yeah.
accepting, the
Inviting,
the hugging,
bringing him back in,
bringing him back in.
because he had disowned, basically disowned his family.
Yeah, he just didn't do that. He had treated the father like he was dead when he asked for the money. So instead of treating the son like he's dead, which he culturally had the right to do, culturally, in his day and time. So Jesus' first hearers who were sitting around these, because remember his audience is the tax collectors and sinners who have come to gather around him, but also the Pharisees and the scribes. Now, how do you think the tax collectors and sinners reacted to this story? Think they were happy? They liked this story.
Yeah.
But the Pharisees and the scribes, they didn't much like this story,
Because
right?
they were left out, you know?
And they were saying, this was not
They were the second
this was
son.
not justice. This was reconciliation in grace.
They didn't know they were sinners.
Yeah. Fished up no one's way. You know what you're saying?
I like the statement that the son came to his senses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not just a mental thing.
Mm-hmm.
He became aware of the smell and the sounds and all his senses, and he went, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
And he's turned to go home. And then I read an article in Christianity Today, so many years ago, that the father daily went to the edge of his property looking for his son. He couldn't go get his son and drag him home, but he was always looking for the return of his son.
Sometimes we have expensive lessons to learn, don't we?
Yes.
But
But
But don't you think, I mean,
you didn't do the normal
as a
reaction.
parent, I would always look for one of mine that would lost.
yes, I would look, but there's just so far you can go.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, like I was
But
right.
God had to intervene.
Mhm.
Go back to the father, to let his son go with the grace that he did,
Right.
meaning giving him his money and his inheritance and all that. A lot of times somebody do that, get out of my house.
That's right.
That's really hard to do.
Right, right. And the older brother could have been upset from the very beginning, not just at the end. Too.
And speaking of the older brother, I've often, I know we're not talking about the older brother.
It's okay, we can talk about it.
So, okay, so when you said, the second verse, and the Pharisees and scribes murmured about this. Okay, so they would have been, to me, they were like the older son. They would have felt that I've done everything, I've followed all the laws, everything, but they just didn't have what they really needed, the compassion and the love, the pure love.
Right.
And they were followers of, and like the son said, I've done everything, you've never given me a ring or a feast.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of their role there.
Yeah, I agree. And the sinners and the tax collectors that he was eating with were like the younger son.
That's right.
That had gone, rogue, as it were, or what have you. This reminds us of earthly fathers, and this is, in some ways, there's some good things you could take away for parenting and that kind of thing, but really this is about God the Father, who accepts us back, no matter where we are, no matter how right. Does anybody know that song, She's Leaving Home, that I talked about from Sgt. Pepper's? I didn't get to, they didn't let me quote all the lyrics in here because they were afraid they'd have to pay for it, but but in my original lesson, I write about the lyrics, and they basically say, the girl leaves home, and then the parents completely complain about what they did to her, what she did to them, rather, what she did to them. We gave her everything, all of our lives, sacrificed everything. How could she do this to me, says the mom. So, nothing, about about concern for her welfare, but just how could she do this to us? And that is how people expected this father was going to react. When Jesus told this story, people didn't know that he was going to have all these surprise parts to it. You know, they thought it was going to be, as I think I wrote about too, that it was supposed to happen a certain way, right? He would come back, and
Work on the farm.
they'd work on he might get a chance to work on the farm. He might get a chance, you know, to and be treated like one of the hired hands. That would have been considered graceful by the father, by the society. But no, he doesn't even get that far. So one of you mentioned that he comes to himself. That's one of the places that is thought maybe he had a moment. How would you characterize that moment when the Bible said, when Jesus said he came to himself, which is in Greek is a very interesting little phrase, but
Somebody slapped him upside the head.
I gotta get my
somebody
life
or
together.
something.
I need to get my life together.
Need to get my life together. Yeah, he was feeding pigs, which was Gentile pigs, which was really the lowest of the low. Yeah, the worst thing he could be doing.
I can relate this to my middle son, who was an alcoholic, and got to the point where he was at the bottom of everything. Okay, that's the son. And at that point, he took charge and turned his life around. And it's been great ever since. So I kind of feel like that it takes, for some people, it takes getting to the bottom.
To rock bottom.
Yeah, when you hit bottom, there's only one way up.
There's one way up.
But rock bottom's a good place to find yourself, because you've got good footing, you can stand up and start climbing out.
Absolutely.
We raised two boys, we raised up two boys, and their teen years were very challenging, more so even their young adult years. And our pastor gave us the best advice ever, because we didn't know what to do. We didn't, do you do an intervention? How far do you go? And he said, just leave the door open.
Yeah.
And that's the father going down to the edge of the property.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Leave the door open.
Yeah. And he went beyond that. He went and looked, as we said, must have looked all the time. And then when he saw him, he didn't wait for him to get there. He went running to him. So it's quite a radical situation. So in here I ask, when have you felt farthest from God on page 56? Have you ever run away from God?
Oh, yeah. My life's been like that. Because right now we're like this, so, but, yeah.
Anybody else want to speak to
I
that?
kind of drifted away a little bit in college.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I started talking to him again, because I was having trouble finding a major that I liked. And it was like within 30 days after I started talking to him, boom, I found it. Wow. Instead of making C's, I was making A's.
I started in college, and then when I got married, it went down, and then after that, further down, and I think I hit bottom, and I said, gotta get my life together.
Yeah.
And that's been my road, trying to get it together.
How did you experience how did God react to your returning?
Wonderfully.
Open arms.
Open arms.
And I'm convinced that God always puts the right person in the right place for you.
Right.
It's like this young lady here.
Oh.
I mean, what a difference she made
Oh.
in my life
Oh.
and our decisions, et cetera, et cetera. And he was very blessed to give me her. Yeah.
Everybody say "aw."
Oh.
Okay, right.
We're not gonna say where I was and all that, but.
Oh, gotcha,
Yes, I
gotcha.
was in a
Yeah,
tough place,
yeah,
tough place, single mother.
yeah. God sent Ray along.
God sent Ray.
Yeah.
She came looking for a Boy Scout.
I found one. Exactly. Who would take on, a mother and child. you know.
Like Rex also, buy one, get one free.
Something like that. What a deal I have for
Yeah,
you. What a deal. Yes.
Oh,
So what is lesson? That's true. I mean, the right people enter your life at the right times. I'm thoroughly convinced of that. It's
We were blind, it was
that's
a
been my
blind
journey.
date. I mean, talk about,
Oh.
Anyway, it's a story for another day.
Precious.
In like 3 months,
That's
she told me
great.
those magic
Perfect.
words, don't call me, I'll call you.
It sounds like me, doesn't it? And I did.
And 6 months later, she called me.
Oh my, let's move on.
We got a good life.
That's right. That's great.
Sitting here
Great story.
now and looking back,
Mhm.
I can see all the points. I can see a lot of the points where God was active in my life. But at the time, I didn't pay attention. I was doing good, type thing. Oh, I fell off the cliff on that one, let's pick yourself up and that. But looking back, it's astonishing how I got here.
Mm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A new thought got to me here, that's probably not new to anybody else, but it seems like what this may be saying to us is that, for me, to look at the places that I'm still lost. The places in my life where I'm still lost to God, because that's where He's still seeking me. And so it's not all one thing or the other. You're not found or lost, you're sort of lost in small pieces.
The choir is singing an anthem, not this Sunday, but next Sunday, the Sunday following. And it's Just As I Am.
Yeah.
That'll rip your heart out.
I love
In a good way.
Yeah,
So,
it does.
Well, as a Free Will Baptist, I can tell you, that was, we say that every Sunday at
Altar call.
every altar call. That's the reason I can't
It makes
say
me
things,
cry.
I mean, I just never got mad at God, because like, that was not. I mean, but that was, it's very moving.
Yes.
It's, no matter how many times you hear it, it pulls at your heartstrings and it makes you analyze yourself, and it just, you feel like that God is there with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, good. In the next section, I wrote about the milk cartons. We used to have the missing children on the milk cartons, but that ended 13 years ago, from what I found out, and Amber Alerts came along, and so in that time, to be lost meant to not only be this younger son was not only a missing person, but he was lost, and the two are not necessarily the same. You could be known and found and around and still be lost in a spiritual sense. So what do you think we mean when we refer to the lost?
Separated from God.
Those are separated from God.
Go in the wrong direction on something, and like Diane's saying, sometimes you don't know at the moment, but you do find out, you can turn around.
I was thinking about people that
That's
are
what repentance is.
Yeah.
bereaved, where you know, someone is gone from you and it's like, you know, you don't see how you can possibly connect with them again, but you will, but until that time, there's that terrible sense of loss.
Well, you
Yeah.
feel, I've been through that. I
Yes.
lost my husband
Yes.
26 years ago.
Yes.
And we went to the doctor and he had a pain in his side and we were building this house. And we thought, I thought, that he had just pulled a muscle or something. And he had esophageal cancer. You go into the doctor's office thinking that, and you come out with maybe 3 to 6 months to live. But God has always been with me. I did feel that he neglected me. And I was disappointed because I thought, God, you can do anything. And you have to ask, I had to ask why. I had a good Christian husband. And this just happened very quickly. He lived 5 weeks in this house we built. But only by the grace of God go I.
Amen. Thank you for sharing
Been
that.
through the whole time.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So sometimes where folks are lost to us, and sometimes we go through a period of feeling lost ourselves. And then there's this kind of, here the son is lost to the Father, but also to God, to his, he's in a bad way. And I don't know if it's just sort of our Methodist thing or something, culture, but and maybe mainline Protestants, and I don't know that the Episcopalians and the Presbyterians and Methodists and folks like that. I don't hear a lot of language about the lost as much as I probably would in some other traditions and some other denominations, and partly that's because I think we try not to differentiate ourselves as the in people and the out people. And so I get a little squirrely when somebody talks about the lost, and I wonder, do they mean people that just don't go to church enough, or people that are of a different religion, or people that don't dress the way you do, or talk the way you do, or etc.? Or do you mean, what do you mean by the lost? And so I hear that language. I think it sounds like we're defining someone as lost in that they're not beyond redemption. They're not beyond saving and welcoming back. That nobody is beyond that. Nobody, right. And so in fact, I don't even know that Wesley used the word lost that much. I have to look at that. But that Wesley would typically identify, encourage us to identify the part of ourselves that's like this, that's like each of the two sons, rather than saying, well, we're the older son, and those people, whoever they are the lost.
Grace abounds, Paul's.
It's always a mixed bag.
Yeah. But to be lost, but to feel lost, and that is a different kind of a thing. I'm just sort of
But
thinking
wasn't the
out loud.
brother lost also, the older brother?
One might say, right. Yeah, he had never gone missing, but he was losing the point of what was happening.
He also felt like he lost favor, the favor of his father, that,
Right.
he was the good son.
Right.
And all of a sudden, all the attention went someplace else, and I'm sure he felt neglected.
Oh.
Pushed aside, and, I'm not worthy to have a feast, or,
Mm-hmm.
this special treatment. And, tough time for him.
Absolutely. The definition that Wesley gives of the younger son's lostness, if you will, is independency on God. Now that sounds a little backwards, or a little funny to our ears. In other words, he lost, what Wesley's trying to say is he lost his sense that he's dependent on God.
Right.
So his problem was that he gained an independency from God. He felt independent,
Right.
that he could do it himself, do it on his own, that kind of thing.
And we all,
That's what it means.
we're all think we can be in control.
Yeah, yeah. The independent spirit, and
It's
which
the American way.
is a good thing. It's in a lot of ways. You know, it can be a good thing if it's channeled in the right way. But if it makes you forget that you depend on others, you depend on God, you depend on,
Don't
on
forget
grace, yeah, then
Who's you.
then you have to kind of check that a little bit, yeah. So then I wonder what you thought about this question. Can you, now I know you may feel a little sheepish about doing this, sheepish. Well, sheep. But you may feel, but you may feel a little weird about answering this, but let me ask you anyway. I know the Father is God in this. I know let's just get out of the way. We know we're not God. But can you identify with the Father, either as a parent, as some of you maybe being parents, or as one who have you ever been in that decision-making situation where maybe it's a family member, maybe it's not, but you're at odds with somebody, or they've done wrong, or they've left, or they've hurt you, and you were faced with a decision of how to react.
I think most parents have had to make a decision once or twice, maybe more often during their life about their children. And you try to be a good parent, and you make a decision, and you hope it's the right decision. And you say a prayer, and off to lunch and bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Identify with the father going to the edge of the property every day. I keep looking,
Keep looking.
but there's nothing we can do. And once you've tried everything, you just have to turn it over
You have
to
to
God.
turn
Yeah,
And-
yeah.
Right.
But they have to turn to home.
Right. Yes.
Yep.
Mm.
Hopefully home is still there.
I think we have or I have, maybe it comes from being a teacher, I don't know, but I'm just always for the underdog. And I think in that way, I sort of see myself relating to the Father that way. The people who are lost, the people who can't make it work somehow,
Right.
attract me.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems that I read somewhere that statistics show that people come to church because they have a need. Sometimes it's because they're in trouble. You know, maybe it's a divorce or family situation. They're desperate in some way, and so in that case, the collective we, need to be the Father, and regardless of how they smell or dress, or what they ate, or whatever it is when they come, that and that's hard for us because we want to be around people like us, right? I mean, that's just natural selection. But I think that's our role as the church, is to behave in that way and know that when people come in our door, that there's, it isn't just because we have a sign in front that says, "You're welcome here." I mean, that may get them in the door. That may get them in the building if there's that big welcome sign on your building. There might be something on Facebook, but there's a reason that word welcome encourages them to come. Whatever that moment was, whether it was, they came to their senses or whatever it was, so, we just need to be
Yeah, there's a lot of people that,
good about
yeah.
understanding that, I think.
And to be sensitive to the fact that it's hard for people to have to be like the younger son and come home. Now, and for increasingly more people, going to church is not coming home because they weren't raised in church. So it's like it's up there with alongside some other options they have, like other things, and they don't think of it as the answer as often, because they're now a generation of adults whose parents didn't take them to church, so.
And we have to be careful not to feel like the other son.
Yeah,
The older son.
right,
Like,
right.
What
right.
do you mean they're giving you a gift because you walked in the door?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's- I haven't had a gift. Somebody from the previous new member class said to me, "We didn't get pizza." They said, "Hey, we're upscale," but it's like, wait a minute, we didn't get pizza in our class. How come these people are getting pizza in their
Oh,
class?
God.
So it's just, it was said in jest, but there's that little grain of,
Yeah.
okay, I want your pizza.
We're getting better at this.
We're doing better. So, absolutely. Anyway, enough on that.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, listen, and then we'll wrap up. Yeah.
I need y'all's prayers because I'm in a situation. I had a gamut of abuse growing up and being rejected by my brothers and sister, my older sister. And having the feeling of the older brother, like, some of them I won't say where I want him to go, but there's also, no, I don't really want that, but my anger is still there.
Yeah.
And so when people come into our church, we don't know their history.
Yeah.
No, but God does.
I know God does.
And we are made in the image of God. And I like to go back to think about the remnant of God that we all are born with.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
That's good.
And I think that's why this guy turned around.
I believe at conception, God enters our life.
Yeah.
Well, it's thoughts, but God is in that remnant. But still, it's painful.
Well,
I'm
it's
sure.
it's good to admit that we're not as grace-filled as the Father, and we're not. God's not saying it. He's encouraging us to be like the Father, be like the younger son if you're lost, be like the Father if you're not lost per se. And definitely right, and definitely don't be like the older brother. But at the end of the day, God is the father figure in this. Represents God, and we're not God. So being patient with ourselves, that's important. Okay, any last thoughts before we talk housekeeping and about next time or get ready for next time? Okay, so we will pick up with page 74, and you're invited to read on, into 95 if you want to read all the dailies. I think most of the dailies are written by the other writers, but I know the long ones are mine, or I wrote them.
I like the longer ones.
Well, but it's fine. That's fine. I'm just saying.
No, I'm just saying.
If you come across one that says like I've got where the writer says, my used to be sell insurance in Mississippi or something. That's not me.
I don't think him.
Or I've got 2 sons and this and that too, or something. Whatever. It's not me. Yeah, that's right. That's my other family. Yeah. So we meet next week, and then we take off a week for Holy Week and a week for spring break,
Right.
and then actually one more week before spring break, the 28th. I've got to be away again, so I'll make you a new sheet, and We also are getting the email transferred over so that Marcia can send a weekly email about Bible study, and we'll keep the information up to date. Okay, so everybody got what they need? Are we ready?
Can I just put in a commercial?
Please.
So, there's been a lot of great messaging put out on our Facebook page. And if you have not had a chance to look at them, please do. It's wonderful. And today, to piggyback on that, Marcia Serpin
Yes.
did a video. She read a book. And at the end of it, it was such a powerful message because it was a call to everyone in our community to find the church and the community that is right for them. Now that is the message of this.
Indeed.
You know, it isn't just, mine's the best, you better come here because
Yeah.
mine's the best.
Yeah, no.
Find the one where you find God. And I was so moved
It
by
was-
that message. Please go to Facebook and look for that, the United Methodist Women's page, and the United
main
Methodist Church, and our church
It
page.
was
Powerful
wonderful. It was
messaging.
about the gargoyles.
Yes,
And then when she closed it, she said, we are a community and you can find 4 churches on our block.
right, I mean, it was,
Pick one.
Gave me a
That's what
chill.
she was saying.
yeah,
All right.
yeah,
It was
but-
wonderful.
But pick one,
Yeah.
come. It was very powerful, if you haven't
And
had a
if
chance to
it
see
means something to you, hit the share button. You don't have to write anything, you just say
You just
share, and it goes to your group.
Yeah.
And somebody in
that
that
helps
group
us
might
get the word
share it,
out.
and it goes, you know, you just cannot stop it once you share.
That's great. It gets the word out.
Right.
That's
Get the
something
word out.
Doug's been preaching for years, right?
Get the word out.
That's right. All right. All right. Well, let's go to God. Thank you. Absolutely. Let's go to God in prayer. We thank you, mighty Father, that you have welcomed us. That when we were lost, you found us, and we thank you that in coming back to you, you accept us. Help us to take this word today to heart, to remember no matter where we are in our faith walk, whether we're near or far, we are still yours, and you never forget us. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.